Imagine staring down from orbit at a perfect bullseye carved into the heart of the Sahara, 45 kilometers across, rings within rings, looking for all the world like a giant eye. Astronauts have been captivated by it since the first space flights. But what if this isn't just a pretty geological accident? What if it holds the key to one of humanity's oldest mysteries, the lost city of Atlantis? Today, we're not chasing myths. We're following the real science, deep time, ancient oceans, and climate shifts so dramatic, they still shape our world. This is the eye of the truth. Picture a colossal target 500 kilometers from the nearest ocean, sitting in the middle of the driest desert on Earth. 45 kilometers wide, made of igneous and sedimentary rock, older at the center than at the edges. For decades, it's lured astronauts, geologists, and, more recently, internet sleuths convinced it's Atlantis. But here's the thing. This isn't a sunken civilization. It's a natural wonder that just happens to look like one. And that resemblance? That's where the real story begins. Plato described an island with 3 perfect rings of land surrounding 2 rings of water, a precise 3:2 ratio, destroyed 9,000 years before his time and swallowed by the sea until the ocean itself became impassable with mud. And here, in the Sahara, we see almost exactly that geometry. Same ratios, same circular logic, same timeline of roughly 11,500 years ago. Coincidence? Or something deeper? The rings match. The catastrophe date matches. Even the impassable mud has a haunting echo. But the truth, as we'll see, is stranger than the myth. In 1967, the US Navy and CIA flew a modified superconstellation over this exact spot at 3,000 feet, mapping its magnetic field. Conspiracy circles claim they were hunting Atlantis. The declassified truth? They were chasing geomagnetic anomalies for navigation charts because this strange bullseye creates unique magnetic signatures. No lost civilization, just science doing what science does, measuring the weird and wonderful quirks of our planet. The real anomaly isn't Atlantis, it's how perfectly nature can fool us. Let's line up Plato's checklist against reality. Concentric rings? Check, but they're the eroded remains of a domed anticline, not city walls. Southern rivers and coastal access? Yes, but from a lush green Sahara 11,000 years ago. Swallowed by the sea? Not quite. This inland basin never flooded from rising oceans. And the shoal mud that made the ocean impassable? That turned out to be an ocean of sand. Every piece matches something real, just not the way the myth imagined. Here's where the myth gets seductive. 100 million years ago, this was an actual ocean, the Trans-Saharan Seaway. 11,000 years ago, it was a green paradise of rivers and lakes. And Plato's date? Almost exactly when the Ice Age ended and the Sahara flipped. The story blends a 100 million-year-old rock dome, a 50 million-year-old sea, and an 11,000-year-old climate shock into one dramatic human event. We love tidy catastrophes. Nature prefers long, messy, magnificent ones. This isn't magic. It's geology in slow motion. First, subterranean forces push the rock layers upward into a massive blister. Then, for millions of years, wind and sand sheared the top flat like a cosmic sanding belt. Finally, erosion sliced it horizontally, exposing the layers as perfect concentric rings. The center rocks are millions of years older than the outer ones, a geologic clock still ticking. Nature didn't build Atlantis, it built a masterpiece of time itself. 50 to 100 million years ago, the Sahara wasn't desert, it was ocean. A shallow saltwater highway bisected West Africa, connecting the Mediterranean to the Atlantic. Global sea levels were so high that waves lapped where sand dunes now stand. Fossils and salt deposits still whisper of mangroves and tropical seas. This wasn't a myth, it was real. And when the sea finally retreated, it left behind a landscape primed for the next chapter of wonder. That ancient seaway wasn't just water, it was an evolutionary pressure cooker. Changing sea levels created isolated islands of water, trapping species and driving them to extremes. The result? Sea snakes stretching 40 to 50 feet, catfish the size of small boats, long-snouted crocodilians, and apex predators that crushed mollusks like walnuts. NSF-funded digs have found them. These weren't monsters from legend. They were real giants shaped by a sea that came and went like a heartbeat. Fast forward to just 11,000 years ago. The Sahara was unrecognizable, a lush tapestry of grasslands, forests, and sparkling lakes. A tiny wobble in Earth's orbit tilted the angle of sunlight, supercharging the West African monsoon. Rain fell in sheets. Hippos wallowed where camels now trek. This wasn't a brief wet spell. It lasted thousands of years, long enough for humans to hunt, gather, and dream beside rivers that no longer exist. Hidden beneath today's sand lies a ghost river system bigger than anything we see now. The mighty Tamanrasset once rivaled the Nile, flowing south from the Atlas Mountains, past the Richat Structure, then west to the Atlantic. Gravity maps and sediment cores reveal its ancient path, an uncanny match for Plato's description of southern flowing rivers and coastal access. The landscape Plato described wasn't fantasy. It was real, just 11,000 years too late for Atlantis. Ice cores tell a brutal truth. The end of the last ice age wasn't gentle. Around 12,800 years ago, temperatures plunged. Then, just 1,300 years later, right on Plato's timeline, they spiked 20 degrees Fahrenheit in mere decades. These weren't slow shifts, they were planetary whiplash. The myth of a civilization destroyed in one grievous day and night feels eerily close to what the data actually shows. Nature doesn't ease us into new eras, it throws us. Earth's orbit wobbles on a 26,000-year cycle, and between 8,000 and 4,500 years ago, that wobble began starving the West African monsoon. Grasslands should have faded gradually. Instead, pollen records show the Sahara flipped to desert shockingly fast. The math doesn't add up with orbital mechanics alone. Something accelerated the end, and that something brings us face to face with our own species' role in planetary tipping points. Archaeologist David Wright has a provocative idea. Early herders may have helped kill the Green Sahara. Their goats and cattle overgrazed the grasses that held moisture in the soil. Bare earth reflected more sunlight, raising albedo, which cooled the air, suppressed clouds, and weakened the monsoon even further. A vicious feedback loop. Humans and their animals didn't just live in the landscape, they changed its thermostat. The desert didn't arrive quietly. We may have helped slam the door. Two forces worked in tandem. Orbital wobbles provided the slow, natural nudge. Early pastoralism delivered the abrupt anthropogenic shove. Pollen cores line up with archaeological sites showing humans and livestock arriving just as the greenery collapsed. The Sahara didn't die of old age. It was nudged, then pushed over an ecological cliff. Both drivers mattered, and the speed of the final collapse still astonishes scientists today. Plato wrote that the ocean at Atlantis' site became impassable and unsearchable, blocked up by shoal mud. He was closer than he knew, just not about water. The real ocean of sand rose up instead. In a geological blink, rivers vanished, lakes dried, and the Green Sahara became the largest hot desert on Earth. The mud was dust and sediment from a climate in freefall. What was once a vibrant world became truly impassable, not by sea but by sand. The Richat Structure is not sunk in Atlantis. It is a 100-million-year-old geological clock that has witnessed ancient seas teeming with 50-foot snakes, then lush savannas carved by rivers the size of the Nile. The myth of overnight destruction resonates because our planet really does flip violently. The Sahara's story is a warning far more urgent than Plato could have imagined. Human societies don't exist in ecological vacuums. The green oasis became wasteland with breathtaking speed. We are living through our own chapter of that same story right now. The question isn't whether change is coming, it's whether we'll read the clock before it strikes again. Thanks for joining me on this episode. If you liked what you heard, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more. Your support means everything. See you next time.